The cell was cold, always cold, not from lack of heating but from something deeper, something that clung to the walls like regret. He sat still on the concrete slab, wrists chained to the table, head bowed. The guards called him 84729, never by name. Maybe they didn't know it. Maybe they just didn't care. He hadn't spoken in over 3 months. Not since the appeal was denied. Not since the governor refused to hear another plea. Not since the world decided he was no longer worth listening to. Convicted of a violent murder almost a decade ago, he was labeled a monster, a savage, a man with no conscience. But if you dug deep enough, if you sifted through the redacted reports and blurred trial footage, you'd find something strange. Contradictions, missing files, a public defender who disappeared mid-trial, and a suspect, his own brother, who'd vanished days before the arrest and never been seen again. But all of that was buried now. The trial was over. The sentence passed. Tomorrow morning at 5 a.m., he would die. And yet, as he sat in silence, a flicker passed through his eyes. A thought, a memory, a name not spoken in years. It burned quietly behind his expressionless face. At 7 p.m., the final preparations began. They placed him on death watch, constant surveillance, hourly checks. 2 guards assigned to monitor him until the end. "Final meal?" a guard asked, holding a clipboard, tone flat. No response. "Clergy?" Nothing. "Confession? Last words to write down?" The silence was broken. Not with anger, not with fear, but with something that stopped both men in their tracks. A whisper, barely audible. "Bring me the bear." The guard blinked. "What?" The prisoner lifted his eyes for the first time in weeks. Steel gray, unwavering. "Just once," he said. "Let me see the bear." The room went still. The other guard laughed. "He's messing with us." "A bear? What, like a teddy bear?" The prisoner didn't smile. "An animal," he said. "Real. Living. She'll come." The laughter died. Something about his voice, calm, resolved, unsettled them. The request was logged, passed up the chain, and dismissed as nonsense. But still, unease stirred. Miles away, in a dim-lit apartment above a corner deli, a young journalist scrolled through a death row database. Ellie Grant, 26, stubborn, sharp-eyed, was known for digging into stories others ignored. Prisoner 84729 caught her attention weeks ago, not because of his silence, but because of what little information existed before his conviction. Every database entry began with the same vague line. Subject was discovered in a ravine near Armitage Forest, severely injured. No prior history, no record before 2012. She pulled up the incident report again. Male subject found bloodied, unconscious. Large animal reported nearby, possibly a bear. Animal fled scene. Subject transferred to medical. She paused. There were no photos of the bear, no follow-up. The report was filed by a ranger who later changed his statement. The animal was dismissed as a hallucination caused by trauma. No one bothered to verify. But the man's injuries were real. Deep claw marks, punctures that didn't match any knife or bullet. The oddest part? Locals in Armitage remembered the bear. They called her Mara, a protective giant seen roaming with her cub years earlier. Then she vanished. Same week the man was found. Ellie's fingers hovered over the keyboard. She looked at the time. 8:42 p.m. She picked up her phone and called the prison. The wind howled outside Monroe State Penitentiary, slamming against the high steel gates like a warning. Guards adjusted their jackets and sipped bad coffee, their eyes flicking toward the fence every few minutes. Nothing ever happened out here. Not until now. It started as a scratching sound. Faint, metallic, rhythmic. The camera on the north tower blinked once, twice, then cut to static. The floodlights flickered. A guard walked out to check. He never made it past the second gate. He froze. Breath caught in his throat. There, on the other side of the razor wire fence, stood a bear. Massive, still, watching. It didn't growl, didn't move, just stared. Radio chatter erupted. Spotlights snapped on. Weapons were drawn. Inside, the prisoner stood at his cell door, unmoving, eyes closed, listening. Ellie arrived 20 minutes later, escorted quickly through the gates by a nervous sergeant. Her press badge meant nothing now. The situation had turned from a curiosity to a full-blown crisis. "It's her," the prisoner whispered as they passed his cell. The guard stopped. "You talking again now?" He said nothing more, just smiled, the first smile they'd ever seen. Years earlier, though he could never remember exactly how many, he ran. His legs carried him through the endless trees of Armitage Forest, each step heavier than the last. Blood soaked his clothes, hot and sticky against skin that trembled in the early frost. He'd been running for days, maybe longer. From what, even he wasn't sure anymore. But he remembered the sound of sirens fading behind him. He remembered the gunshots, 2 of them, one not fired by him, and he remembered the silence that followed, the kind that screamed guilt, whether earned or not. They said he killed his brother. He said his brother tried to kill him. No one stayed long enough to hear his side. He stumbled into the ravine by accident, slipped on loose rock and collapsed hard against the stones, head slamming, breath knocked out of his chest. His vision swam. He clawed upward but slid back down. And when he tried again, a searing pain in his leg told him he wasn't walking anywhere. The trees blurred. Sky folded in on itself. He was alone, forgotten, and soon to be dead. Or so he thought. A sound broke through the haze. Not wind, not water. Breathing, heavy, deep, rhythmic, close. Then, something soft brushing his cheek. He opened one swollen eye. A bear cub. Small, fuzzy, brown with eyes too wide for its face. It sniffed at his coat, then pawed gently at his arm, tilting its head with the puzzled curiosity of something that didn't yet understand death. Then, thunder. Not from the sky, but footsteps. She emerged from the brush like a shadow pulling itself from the earth. Immense, towering. A mother bear, muscles like stone, fur like night, breath steaming in the cold morning air. She saw him. He stopped breathing. She didn't growl, didn't charge. She only watched. He closed his eyes, praying it would be quick. But death never came. Instead, the bear walked to the cub, gave a low grunt, and, without breaking eye contact, lowered herself to the forest floor, feet from him. Then she lay down, rested her head, eyes half-lidded, calm. It made no sense. It defied everything he knew about nature and survival. He whispered, "Why?" No answer, just the sound of wind through trees. Then he passed out. He woke to a pile of leaves over his chest. Not random. Placed. Food lay next to him. Berries, roots, even what looked like the leg of a rabbit. The cub sat nearby, watching him with that same quiet curiosity. He thought he was hallucinating. Until the next morning, when it happened again. The bear hadn't left. Over the next week, she returned again and again, always with food. Sometimes she sat beside him. Sometimes she left the cub behind, as if trusting the man to watch over her child. He began talking to her, at first just to hear his own voice again, then because it felt like she listened. "I'm not a killer," he whispered one night, voice cracking. "I didn't mean for any of it to happen." The bear blinked slowly. No judgment in her eyes, no fear. He named her Mara. It just felt right. As the days passed, he healed. Not just physically, but in the places inside him that had gone cold long before the ravine. And Mara was always there. When a storm rolled in unexpectedly and snow dusted the pines early, she lay beside him. Massive warmth pressed against his side. Once, a pack of wolves got too close. He heard them before he saw them. But Mara stood tall between him and the pack, growling low, thunder building inside her chest. The wolves scattered before a single blow was struck. She saved him, and in turn, he made her laugh. If such a thing was possible, he taught her to sit with a flat palm, and she did. He held out branches like juggling batons, and she caught them, balancing on her hind legs like some gentle forest performer. He didn't feel like a fugitive anymore. He felt human again. But peace never lasts long when men are hunting you. The morning was too quiet. The forest too still. Then came the sound. That mechanical whine from above, the kind nature never makes. Helicopters. He rose slowly, painfully, heart pounding in his ears. He turned to Mara. She stood beside her cub, looking up at the treetops, uneasy. She knew something was coming, something worse than wolves. Shouts echoed in the distance. A voice over a loudspeaker barked commands. Then the sharp pop of a tranquilizer dart slicing through the air. Mara roared. He ran to her, but it was too late. Another dart hit her shoulder. She stumbled, roared again, then sagged to her knees. "No! Don't touch her! Don't hurt her!" he screamed, but his voice was drowned out by the sound of boots on soil. Men in vests and helmets rushed in, rifles drawn. Someone grabbed him, pinned him. Someone else shouted, "We got him!" He looked back just as Mara's massive head hit the ground, eyes blinking slow, unfocused. "Help her," he begged, tears pouring down his dirt-streaked face. "She didn't do anything. Don't take her." But they didn't hear him, or they didn't care. Mara was dragged away in a net. Her cub, too. He screamed until his voice gave out. He never saw her again, until now.